Shalom, family. The soul food topic on tonight is how to be a man. Okay, I'm going to have you first go to 1 Samuel chapter 3, verse 19. 1 Samuel chapter 3, verse 19.
Okay. And Samuel grew, and Yahweh was with him, and did let none of his words fall to the ground.
Okay, so the prophet Samuel, when he was a child, he encountered the Most High. When he was lying asleep with his father Eli in the other room, the Most High called upon him. He did not know the voice of God. Okay, and his father Eli had to instruct him on what to do in order to have a relationship with the Most High. Okay, so it's saying here that Samuel grew and Yahweh was with him. So the topic is how to be a man. So in order for us to be men in the sight of God, righteous men, responsible men, mature men, we have to first and foremost have the Most High be with us as we age, as we come to the point of maturity. True maturity in the sight of the Most High God is when you obey him. Okay? And it says that, and did not let none of his words fall to the ground. So he was a true prophet. Anything that Samuel declared, it came to pass. Not only the word that was given to him for someone, but if Samuel decided of his own volition to declare something, it came to pass off the strength that the Most High was with him. Okay? From there, I have you go to Luke chapter 2, verse 52. The book of Luke chapter 2, verse 52.
And Yahawashi increased in wisdom and stature, and in favor with Yahweh and man.
So the same thing exists with Yahawashi. He was young and then he became a man. So it says here that he increased in wisdom and stature. Stature being on a physical level, he grew taller as he became a man. He developed his physical body. But then stature can also mean influence. That can also mean fame. That can also mean title, reputation. His stature grew. So as he grew in wisdom and understanding, okay, and as he physically grew, his stature, his fame, his recognition, that also grew, okay, and in favor with God and man. So again, before you can become a big shot, so to speak, and be a man in the way the world might define you as a man, you're only a true man when you are in favor with God, as Samuel was, okay? From there, I have you go to 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11.
When I was a child, I spake as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things.
Okay, so Apostle Paul is saying, when I was a child, when I was in my youth, there were certain things that I did that pertained to the years of my youth. Okay, but as I grew, as you saw the example with Samuel and with Yahawashi, as they grew, their wisdom and understanding increased, their stature increased with God and with man. Okay, so Apostle Paul is saying, when I was a kid, when I was in my youth, there were certain things that I did, certain ways that I thought. There was a certain way I lived as a youth. But when I became a grown man, when I came to the age of accountability, when I came to the age of maturity and responsibility, I put away those childish things. The childish way that I spoke no more. The childish way that I thought no more. The childish actions and way of life that I led in the days of my youth, when I became a man, I put them away. Okay? Not to be brought forth anymore. When we become men, true men in the sight of God, we put away those childish things. Okay? When you deal with a child, a lot of times they have difficulty sharing, right? You say, share that. They don't want to share it. They want to, hoard it to themselves. That's a childish mentality. When you become a man, you're not supposed to keep that same childish mentality. that niggard mentality, not nigger, but niggard, to be stingy, unwilling to give. The commandment is to love thy brother as thy own self. Okay? Love your neighbor as you would, do unto your neighbor as you would have be done unto you. So when you're a child, those things are, they're not permissible, but, you grow, you age, you become disciplined. Your parents tell you, okay, that's unacceptable. You can't do it. But it's excusable to a degree because you're a child. That's the nature of a child. But when you become a man, you put those things away. When you're a child, it's about having fun. The discipline of going to school, the discipline of doing your chores, that's not in your mind. It's about having fun and enjoying yourself. But as you become aged and mature, your parents are instructing you and instilling in you a work ethic that when you become a man, you don't have that mentality. Yes, there's a time and place to enjoy yourself, the fruits of your labor, according to Ecclesiastes. Okay? The fruits of your hand, all these different things. Matter of fact, let me grab that passage real quick. For all his days are sorrow, and his travail grief. Yea, his heart taketh not rest in the night. This is also vanity. 24, there is nothing better for a man than that he should eat and drink, and that he should make his soul enjoy good in his labor. This also I saw, that it was from the hand of God. So, I say all that to say, when you're a child, it's all about fun. You don't want to be restrained or restricted from having the fun. You don't want to have to bear the responsibility of being disciplined and doing things you don't want to do when you're a child. When you're an adult, you may still feel that way to some degree, but you have to put those feelings aside and do that which you are called to do as a man. There's a time and a place, as Ecclesiastes chapter 2 verse 24 is letting us know, to enjoy the fruits of our labor. But you have to labor. There's a time to rest and relax, and then there's a time to work. It's a time for everything under the sun. Okay, so Apostle Paul is letting us know when we were a child, when we were in the days of our youth, we acted a certain way. When we became a man, we put those things away. There was a new way of thinking, a new way of doing. Okay, from there I have you go to Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 9, verse 6. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 9, verse 6.
For though a man be never so perfect among the children of men, yet if thy wisdom be not with him, he shall be nothing regarded.
Okay, so again, this goes back to what I was saying, in that in order to truly be a man, it's not about having the money. It's not about having a big house or having all the girls. Being a man in the sight of the Most High is keeping his commandments and having his wisdom rest on you. Okay, read that scripture one more time.
For though a man be never so perfect among the children of men.
So, although a man can be very handsome, be a stylish dresser, right? He can have some money, have some clout, some influence, have a talent, have a gift, and men regard him as perfect. Go on.
Yet if thy wisdom be not with him.
So if he is a slothful man, not even slothful, but if he is just a wicked man, okay, although people may regard him as something, he's grown, he don't live with his parents no more, he got a little bit of money, he got a little bit of something. If he does not keep the commandments, if the wisdom of God does not rest on him, read.
He shall be nothing regarded.
He shall be nothing regarded. The Most High will regard him as nothing. The Most High will regard him as nothing. You're not a real man in the sight of the Most High, maybe before other men, but not the Most High God. That's why it is important for us, if we truly want to be regarded as men, to keep the commandments and walk in wisdom, not in the folly of our youth. Those days are over with. You're not 5 years old. You're not 9. You're not 12, 15. You're a grown man. Now you got to start to live by those principles. Okay? From there, let's go to Proverbs chapter 1, verses 7 through 10, and then verse 15. Proverbs chapter 1, verses 7 through 10 and 15.
Proverbs chapter 1, verses 7 through 10. The fear of Yahweh is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction.
So the scriptures essentially saying, in order to become a man, the first thing you got to do is learn to fear the Most High. But a fool will despise wisdom. What is a fool? A fool is a grown man who acts like a child. He doesn't bear the responsibility. He doesn't, first of all, he doesn't learn to fear the Most High. He despises instruction. He want to have fun all the time. He a fool. He does not know what it takes to truly be a man. He grown, he's a male. You know, he got all the parts. He know how to work them. He know how to go out and have sex with women, but he don't know how to be a man. He's a fool because he despises instruction. Read on.
Verse 8. My son, hear the instruction of thy father, and forsake not the law of thy mother.
The teachings of your parents that rear you up in the way of on how to be righteous and how to be a man. Read.
For they shall be an ornament of grace unto thy head, and chains about thy neck.
Salakia, so you can kind of tie this in with what we read in Wisdom of Solomon, right? So if you keep not the wisdom of God, although you be perfect before men, you be regarded as nothing. Now, Solomon is saying, son, remember the teachings of your father and of your mother, for they shall be as an adorning, right? They shall be, what does it say here, verse 9? An adornment of grace upon thy head and chain upon thy neck.
Ornament.
Yeah. So if you keep these commandments, they will be like spiritual raiment, right? So on the one side with Wisdom of Solomon, he said it, you can be perfect before man, but you are like nothing to the Most High. Okay? But if you keep the commandments and walk in wisdom, although men may regard you like, yeah, he ain't really got it like that, the Most High sees you because you had that spiritual raiment on. The Most High highly esteems you because you keep his commandments, you walk in wisdom. You put him first as both Samuel and Yahawashi did. Okay, read.
Verse 10. My son, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not.
This is also going back to what was said in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, that when I was a child, I spoke as a child, I reasoned as a child. When I became a man, I put away those childish things. The father is saying to the son, look, if sinners entice thee, don't go with them. All right, I've taught you when you were a child. You may have fell victim when you were a child, but now you're a man, you should be able to discern between good and evil. And if somebody come into your life and trying to entice you to do contrary to what you've been taught since you were a child, you have to have the courage, the wisdom, the understanding to say, nah, I'm good. I'm not doing that. I was taught better. Okay? Read.
Verse 15. My son, walk not thou in the way with them, refrain thy foot from their path.
And again, this goes back to fearing the Most High. This is the the basic principle of becoming a man. Okay? Because if you fall in the ways of sinners, if you fall in the ways of unrighteousness, then you won't fulfill the other tenets of what it takes to be a responsible, mature man. Okay? You won't be counted off by your people, by your family. Your mother and father will regard you as a reproach, as a shame unto them. In and out of jail, can't keep a job, can't do nothing for yourself. Got all these kids but not taking care. That is not a man in the sight of the Most High God. That's not. You got to keep the commandments and walk upright. That's what the scriptures are saying. Okay? From there, we're going to go to 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verses 10 through 11. Second Thessalonians chapter 3, verses 10 and 11.
For even when we were with you, this we commanded you, that if any would not work, neither should he eat. For we hear that there are some which walk among you disorderly, working not at all, but are busybodies.
So a man in the sight of the Most High God ought not to be a busybody, gossiping. Is this a true saying where they say men a lot of times are bigger gossipers than women? That's a true saying.
Mm-hmm.
That's a true saying. But the apostle is saying that should not be so. Not among the righteous men. Not among the men who bear wisdom and keep the commandments and faith. Not those type of men. Not the men who have put away childish things. Not those type of men. They shouldn't be busybodies. They shouldn't be gossipers. They shouldn't be spreading tales, slander, things of that nature. Those are the things that the weaker vessel usually fall victim to. But a righteous woman ain't gonna do that either. But usually that's what the women get into. Men shouldn't be doing that. On the phone talking about this and that. On social media talking about this and that. Okay? But verse 10, for even when we were with you, this we commanded you. All right? And the apostles are not going to give a commandment that they themselves would not follow. Paul talked about how he worked and took care of his. And so he's commanding this of all the men, right? That if any would not work, neither should he eat. So don't come and sit down at the table first looking to get a big plate and you ain't put in a day's work. Okay? And whatever that might be. But that's the responsibility. When you were a child, you did not have the responsibility to work. You were only given the tasks that were given you as a child to complete. But now that you are a man, that responsibility doesn't fall on your mother and father anymore. Now you have to take the reins and care for yourself and now care for your family. And if you're not doing that, then what are you? You a fool. You are not highly regarded. You may look good, you may have a talent, you may do this and do that, but you are not highly regarded before the Most High, according to wisdom of Solomon. So from there, go to Colossians chapter 3, verses 19 and 20. Colossians chapter 3, verses 19 and 20.
Colossians chapter 3, verses 19 and 20. Husbands, love your wives and be not bitter against them.
So this is a responsibility of the men. Young boys aren't husbands. When they mature, then they can become husbands. So for the grown man that has found himself a wife, this is the responsibility for husbands to love your wives and be not bitter against them. Treat them right. Read on.
Verse 20. Children, obey your parents in all things, for this is well pleasing unto Yahweh.
Okay. Read verse 21 as well.
Fathers, provoke not your children to anger, lest they be discouraged.
So not only are the fathers instructed to not be bitter towards their wives and to love them, take care of them, but also there's a responsibility on the fathers not to provoke your children to wrath, lest you discourage them. Okay? So in order to effectively do that, you have to keep the commandments. You have to keep the commandments. You have to walk in wisdom to know how to deal with your wife. Okay? Marriage is, a perfect marriage doesn't just come about. If you want a successful marriage, you have to work at it. Because you have two different individuals from perhaps two different backgrounds that are coming together, living together, and it takes wisdom on both parties. But especially from the head of the relationship, the man. You got to know how to run your house, and you got to know how to deal with your wife and how to instruct her and lead her and not be bitter against her. For in doing so, you can discourage her as well. She is the weaker vessel. And that comes with the fear of Yahweh. That comes with walking in wisdom. That comes in keeping the commandments. And then as doing that with your wife, you have children, you got to learn how to discipline them. Not over-discipline either. Learn when to encourage, when to admonish, when to exhort, when to chastise, when to do all these different things. That comes with wisdom. But you can't be the type of father that is looking to eat. And when I say eat, I'm not just talking about, a bowl of cereal. I'm talking about on a financial level. You looking to have, but you're not putting in the work. You got to put in the work in order to receive the fruits thereof. Okay? Now let's go to Isaiah chapter 5, verse 13. Isaiah chapter 5, verse 13. Isaiah chapter 5, verse 13.
Therefore my people are gone into captivity because they have no knowledge, and their honorable men are famished, and their multitude dried up with thirst.
So the reason why we as a nation, but especially because I'm focusing on the men, why we're here in America, in Mystery Babylon, in the land of our captivity, is because our forefathers, as well as us men, have failed to be men. We have failed to be men. And what is required of us as men? First and foremost, to fear the Most High God, to keep his commandments. It reads there in verse 13, their honorable men are famished. Their honorable men are famished, and their multitude dry up with thirst. We dropped the standard as men. We were not the husbands we needed to be. We were not the fathers we needed to be. We were not the servants of Yahweh that we needed to be. Our honorableness has dried up. There's no honorableness among the black men in America. The nations ain't looking at the image of the black man and saying that's an honorable image. They saying that's a despicable image. That's a detestable image. The honorable men are famished. The men of Judah, the men of Israel, of the tribes of Jacob, are dishonorable. But it's because we have not known the knowledge of our God and the knowledge of his commandments. We have not walked therein. Read verse 13 again.
Therefore my people are gone into captivity because they have no knowledge of
They do not know the commandments. That's why they have gone into ships, slave ships, into the land of America, into the house of bondage, the land of captivity. Read.
Because they have no knowledge, and their honorable men are famished, and their multitude dried up with thirst.
If you remember, according to the law, the priests, it was the responsibility of the priests, the prophets, and the king, all at once or at different times, to instruct the people, the noblemen, the princes, okay, those that were in the company of the righteous. They were supposed to teach the people. It was also instructed for the fathers to teach their children. Okay, you go back to Deuteronomy, you go back to the law. It was given unto them to teach the generation, your sons' sons, that they may know to keep these things, that when they ask, Father, what doest thou? What is the meaning of all this? That you might instruct them. Something happened because of sin, that those fathers, not the mother, we're not talking about her, because it's not her responsibility to do that. It is the father. It is the man's responsibility. This is how you become a man. This is how you be a man in the sight of the Most High God. The ball was dropped. The fathers went off, and they were not fathers. They provoked their sons and their children to wrath and discouraged them. And they have gone away from keeping the commandments of God. They have no knowledge because the fathers dropped the ball. Now, as a result of the ignorance of the children, they have grown up and have become hardened in their iniquitous ways. But the curse still applied to them because they were bound to the covenant from the beginning. The blood of the covenant is on the children, and they shall be repaid for their iniquity. And now he has sent us into captivity. And we're still dealing with fatherlessness. We're still dealing with the despised image of the black man who does not know effectively how to be a man because we despise his knowledge. We despise his law. We know how to have sex. We know how to sell drugs. We know how to make some money, some fast money. We know how to shoot a basket or catch a football for a touchdown. We know how to do those things. We know how to dance. We know how to do evil. The word says that my people are knowledgeable to do wicked, but to do righteous they have no knowledge. So we know how to do all the wicked stuff. We got that down packed. But when it comes to keeping the commandments of God, we have no idea. And because of that, he has to repay us for our iniquity. So we got to, as a nation, and as a nation of men, his servants, we got to get back to learning what it takes to be a real man, to lead our families, to be responsible. Scripture said, if he does not work, he ought not eat. Don't come sit down at the table if you ain't put in a day's labor. Don't come sit down here. You're not deserving, the apostle said. We got to learn to be men, because it was this lack of manliness that led to our condition. You can't look to the women and say, be a man. That's not a responsibility. And the reason why the women have fallen, the honorable women have become famished as well, if you will, is because the honorable men weren't doing their responsibility. They abdicated their responsibility. They left it aside. The women have fell into ruin, and thus the children have fallen into ruin. Thus the nation has fallen into ruin. It's all in the scripture. He said, husbands, love thy wives and be not bitter towards them. And then fathers, provoke not thy children, especially your sons, especially them boys that come from your loins. Provoke them not to wrath, lest they be discouraged. What does that mean, to be discouraged? What it means to be discouraged is that they seek after other gods. They seek after other philosophies, other belief systems. You hear it said of young men that they said hip hop was their father. The streets was their father. Why? Because their actual biological father despised them, provoked them to wrath, and they were discouraged, and they were looking for a God. They were looking for a headship. They were looking for a father. They couldn't find it, and they found it in the streets. And this is all a byproduct of that father, the initial father, the first generation, despising the laws of God. He said, okay, now I'm going to have to send all y'all into captivity. That's the consequence. I'm going to have to send all of y'all into captivity because you were not a man. Now we got to pick ourselves up from the bootstraps spiritually, not physically. Talk about get out and grind and hustle to make money. I'm talking about pull yourself up from the bootstraps spiritually, meaning having to recognize that I have sinned, to repent and start back from the beginning. This was the advice that Jeremiah gave to the multitude that sought to flee into Egypt from the face of the king of Babylon. Look, when we used to turn to the Most High, we didn't have food and we went without. Jeremiah's like, look, you got to do it the right way. You can't look to keep the commandments for 5 minutes and expect a blessing to fall out the sky and hit you upside the head. You got to be faithful and sincere to keep these commandments, and eventually the Most High will do it. The reason why he don't bless you immediately, because he want to try you and see if will you be faithful? Will you be sincere to keep my commandments? Okay? So spiritually, we got to pull ourselves up from the bootstraps and recognize I've sinned. I got to start back at square one. I don't know nothing like you. We got to count ourselves as fools, as babes, and learn again. We got to be born again. Mm-hmm. We got to be born again and get an understanding and be taught. We may not have fathers with the wisdom of God to instruct us. But if we're blessed enough to be in the company of men, mature men who can teach us, then as the scriptures say, wear out the threshold, wear out the steps of that wise man. Mm-hmm. Ask him questions. Mm-hmm. Learn, be instructed, grow. Don't remain in that childlike state where you a grown man, you got a beard and tattoos and you grown, but you still a kid in the spirit. You still a babe, you still a child. You still think like a little boy. You a grown man. Serve time in prison, but you still thinking like a little boy. You done killed people. You tough, but you still think like a little boy because you have not learned to fear Yahweh. That is the principal thing. You have to learn to fear him and keep his commandments. Then when you do that, then you will be on the path of being a righteous man, a responsible man, a mature man. Without it, we just read in the Wisdom of Solomon, though ye be perfect before man, you tough, you big, you strong, you gifted, you skilled, you handsome, you got a little money. Although you be perfect before man, if you have not the wisdom of God, you are not regarded of him. The Most High not even looking at you. He's saying he a boy. What? But he 35 and he got it going on. He's a boy. I'm going to go find me a real man. Let's look at the example that with Saul and David, right? Saul was despised of the Father. The Most High wasn't dealing with Saul no more. He was a grown man. The scriptures say that he was head and shoulders above the people. So physically, Saul was a tall man. the son of Kish. He was a tall man, right? He was a king. He had the ladies, you know what I'm saying? He had it going on. I'm sure he was a handsome dude. But the Most High said, I'm done with you. I don't care how the people regard you. I'm done with you, Saul. I'm done. I'm going to go find me a man after my own heart. And he found him a young boy. That's my king right there. That's my King David. He will be faithful in all my house. He was still a child. The Most High said, that's a man, because he keeps my commandments. And as Samuel and Yahawashi, as he grew, his wisdom and understanding grew. But he learned to keep the commandments from his youth, from his father Jesse teaching him. So there are lessons for our learning within the scriptures, for us men on how to be men. Follow David's example. Follow Samuel and Yahawashi's example. David wasn't like, yo, I got to hustle and try to make this money, baby. That's not David's mentality. He was instructed of his father Jesse, yo, go out, bring the cheese and bring some of the snacks and go to your brothers, go to your brethren and just, help them out, make sure they're good and they're nourished for the battle. We went out there. He was talking with the men.
The captain.
Yeah, and like, yo, what's going on? What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Yo, this Goliath out here and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
His brother, not being the man he ought to be, coming against his brother and saying, look, I know your naughtiness. Mm-hmm. You ain't coming out here just to, you just want to be nosy. Mm-hmm. Take your behind back to the sheepfold and tend to the sheep. Mm-hmm. But the Most High was stirring David up because he was going to be the king. He was the man that the Most High had chosen. He was responsible. He was mature. He obeyed orders. David wasn't just thrust out into leadership. He followed and obeyed the voice of his eventual father-in-law and the king. He wasn't like some of these kings of Israel and kings of Judah who kept conspiring against one another and killing them off and all that. Mm-hmm. David was content in his role being under the king.
Mm-hmm. And loyal.
Being loyal. Loyal to his son. You know what I'm saying? Loyal to the house of Benjamin. He was loyal. He said, I will not do the anointed of God any harm. Mm-hmm. He's the anointed of God. Mm-hmm. I cannot kill him. That's my father-in-law. You tripping. Mm-hmm. David understood that because he was a real man. He understood these things. Okay? And the only reason why there was friction, because that evil spirit came on Saul, he wasn't the man he needed to be. Right? He didn't keep the commandments. Right? And that evil spirit came on him. And when he was hearing the song, when the girls were singing the song, Saul got his 1,000, David his 10,000. They was playing the beat. He's like, yo, who came up with this song, man? I don't like this. They giving this dude more praise than me, and I'm the king. He didn't like it at all. But David was still loyal in all of Saul's house. That's why he was worthy to be the king, because he was a man even from his youth, if you be spiritual. He learned to put away childish things as he grew. He didn't hold on to that. He loved his people, and he loved the Most High. All right, last passage and we'll be finished. Have you go to 1 Timothy 5 and 8. 1 Timothy 5 and 8.
Okay, 1 Timothy chapter 5 and verse 8. But if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel.
Infidel meaning unbeliever. So the apostle is making it abundantly clear what the responsibility of a man is on a financial tip. That if he don't take care of his own, meaning his immediate family, especially those of his house, meaning his wife and his kids. So there's a responsibility to care for your parents if they need to care, for your siblings if they need to care, your grandparents, those of your family, and then especially those that you live in the house with, your kids and your wife. If you ain't taking care of them, what does it say? He hath denied the faith. So he can be out there on the street corner preaching and doing all that. Oh, praise to the Most High Yahweh and His Son Yahawashi. You could be doing that all day. If you not walking upright and being in the example of a true man, Apostle Paul said, you done denied the faith, dog. You're worse than an infidel. So what is Paul essentially saying? A responsible, mature Edomite is better than this irresponsible Hebrew Israelite out here preaching. That's what the Most High said. I have more respect unto Edom taking care of his family than this supposed man of God, this supposed prophet who ain't taking care of his. He is worse than an infidel, an Edomite, a Moabite. If he taking care of his, the Most High got more respect unto him than you. That's how important it is. Okay? So we'll leave it there. So we need to learn how to be a man.
LawzMarketplace.com, the site where the tribes unite. Check out fresh Israelite apparel for both men and women, with new items added frequently. Don't forget to join the marketplace so you can promote your own products and services. Kwam Yasha Allah.